Welcome back to Home Field Trivia. Thanks for joining us for our Washington Commanders quiz. Like and subscribe for more content. Leave a comment below. And with that, let's get started. The Washington franchise was originally founded as the Boston Braves in 1932. That is true. The team changed its name to the Washington Redskins in 1937. That is false. They changed it in 1933. The Commanders currently play their home games at FedEx Field. That is true. Washington has won 3 Super Bowls in franchise history. That is true. Joe Gibbs is the only head coach in the NFL history to win Super Bowls with 3 different starting quarterbacks. That is true. Washington won its last Super Bowl during the 1991 season. That is true. The franchise has never had a player rush for more than 1,500 yards in a season. That is false. John Riggins was named Super Bowl 17 MVP after rushing for 166 yards and a touchdown. That is true. Washington has appeared in 5 Super Bowls, winning 3 of them. That is true. The team was officially renamed the Washington Commanders in 2020. That is false. Doug Williams was the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl. That is true. Washington's first Super Bowl victory came against the Denver Broncos. That is false. The franchise has won more NFL championships than Super Bowls. That is true. Art Monk was the first wide receiver in NFL history to record over 100 receptions in a season. That is true. Joe Theismann broke his leg in a 1985 game against the New York Giants. That is true. The Washington defense of the 1980s was nicknamed the Hogs. That is false. Sean Taylor was a Pro Bowl safety for Washington before his tragic death. That is true. Washington's all-time leading rusher is John Riggins. That is true. Washington's all-time leading passer is Sonny Jurgensen. That is false. The team's marching band is the oldest in the NFL. That is true. Washington once played its home games at RFK Stadium. That's true. The team has retired more jersey numbers than any other NFL franchise. That is false. Washington's last NFC Championship game appearance was in the 1991 season. That is true. The franchise was the first NFL team to have a fight song. That is true. Mark Rippon was named Super Bowl MVP for Washington's Super Bowl 26 victory. True. The Commanders have never had a player lead the NFL in passing touchdowns. False. Washington was the first NFL team to integrate African American players after World War II. False. The team once drafted Hall of Famer Darrell Green in the first round. True. Washington has never had a player win NFL MVP. False. The franchise's last playoff win came in the 2005 season. That is true. Thanks for joining us at Home Field Trivia. Like and subscribe for more content. Leave a comment below. And join us next time.